I was standing at Gate 12 at Chicago O'Hare International Airport boarding pass in my trembling hand when my phone rang with the call that would shatter everything I believed about family loyalty. My father's voice cut through the terminal noise like a knife through my heart as he delivered the most devastating blow of my 28 years on this earth. He was demanding that I give up my seat on the Dubai vacation. I had spent $22,000 of my own hard-earned money to plan and pay for handing it over to my sister Madison's unemployed fiancé, Trevor, instead. This was the trip I had dreamed about for months, working overtime and taking freelance projects to afford first-class flights and five-star accommodations for 6 people. And now my own father was choosing a man who had never contributed a single penny to our family over the daughter who had sacrificed everything to make this celebration possible. The irony was suffocating as I stood there listening to my father explain his decision, because this entire Dubai adventure had been my love letter to the family that raised me. 6 months earlier, I had received the promotion to senior marketing manager at Henderson Communications that I had been fighting for since graduating college, and my first instinct was to share this success with the people who had supported me through every struggle and setback in my career journey. I had spent countless evenings researching the perfect destination for my father, Robert's 60th birthday celebration, scrolling through travel websites and reading reviews until my eyes burned from the computer screen glow. Dubai emerged as the ideal choice because it offered luxury experiences that none of us had ever imagined possible, from the iconic Burj Al Arab Hotel with its gold-plated fixtures and helicopter landing pad to private desert safaris under star-filled Arabian skies. Every detail had been meticulously planned and personally arranged by me, from securing Emirates first-class tickets with live flatbeds and personal minibars to booking connecting suites at the Burj Al Arab that cost more per night than most people spend on rent. I had coordinated visa applications for all 6 travelers, researched the best restaurants in downtown Dubai, and even arranged for a private yacht charter in Dubai Marina, with a professional chef who would prepare fresh seafood while we watched the sunset, paint the Persian Gulf in shades of amber and rose. The guest list had been carefully considered to include everyone who mattered most in our family circle. My parents, Robert and Linda, deserved this luxury after 35 years of marriage, filled with modest vacations to Lake Michigan and weekend trips to Wisconsin Dells. My sister Madison, 25, and struggling to establish herself as an artist in Chicago's competitive gallery scene, needed this escape from her cramped studio apartment and the constant stress of trying to make rent through her pottery sales. Her fiancé Trevor would join us because, despite my reservations about his contributions to their relationship, Madison insisted that he was part of her future and therefore part of our family. My boyfriend Jake had earned his spot on this trip through 2 years of unwavering support during my most challenging professional period, including the months when I questioned whether I was smart enough or tough enough to succeed in marketing. He had celebrated every small victory and encouraged me through every setback, never once making me feel guilty for the long hours and weekend work that my career demanded. I had worked overtime shifts at Henderson Communications for 4 months straight, taking on additional clients and managing campaigns that normally would have been distributed among 3 different account managers. I supplemented my salary with freelance social media consulting for local restaurants and boutique shops, often working until midnight to create content calendars and advertising strategies that would fund this dream vacation. Every penny had been saved with religious dedication, from packing lunch every day instead of buying food near my downtown Chicago office, to canceling my Netflix subscription and gym membership to redirect those monthly expenses toward the Dubai Fund. I had even sold my grandmother's antique jewelry collection, keeping only her wedding ring, because I believed that creating new memories with my living family was more important than preserving objects from the past. But as my father continued talking, the devastating truth began to emerge through his uncomfortable pauses and defensive explanations. This was not a spontaneous decision made in the chaos of airport departure logistics. Trevor had been expecting this trip invitation for weeks, building his anticipation, while I remained completely oblivious to the conversations happening behind my back. My father revealed that he had been having private discussions with Trevor about possibilities for including him in family adventures, conversations that had apparently evolved into promises without my knowledge or consent. Trevor had been told that successful families like ours always found ways to accommodate everyone who mattered, and that there might be flexibility in our travel arrangements if he expressed enough interest in joining the celebration. The shock of this betrayal left me speechless as I realized that while I had been working myself to exhaustion to create the perfect family celebration, my father had been undermining my generosity by making commitments with my money that he had no authority to make. The trip that I had envisioned as a gift of gratitude had become a weapon used to manipulate my emotions and exploit my dedication to family harmony. Standing in that airport terminal, clutching my phone while passengers streamed past me toward their gates, I finally understood the complex web of manipulation that had been building around Trevor's relationship with my sister Madison. What I had dismissed as typical new relationship awkwardness was actually a calculated campaign to establish financial dependency and emotional control over our entire family structure. Madison had met Trevor 8 months earlier at a coffee shop near the Art Institute of Chicago, where she was taking evening classes in ceramic sculpture, while working part-time at a framing shop to pay for her materials and studio space. Trevor had approached her with what seemed like genuine interest in her artwork, asking thoughtful questions about her creative process and expressing admiration for the dedication required to pursue art as a career in such an expensive city. Their relationship had progressed with surprising speed, moving from casual coffee dates to Trevor spending every night at Madison's small apartment in Logan Square within just 3 weeks of their first meeting. By the 2-month mark, Trevor had officially moved in bringing nothing but 2 suitcases of clothes and a laptop computer that he claimed contained his business files and entrepreneurial projects. Trevor described himself as a freelance entrepreneur who specialized in identifying emerging market opportunities and developing innovative business strategies for forward-thinking investors. He spoke confidently about pending deals and upcoming opportunities, always just weeks away from major breakthroughs that would establish his financial independence and allow him to contribute properly to his relationship with Madison. However, as months passed without any evidence of actual income or professional success, Trevor's explanations became increasingly elaborate and his requests for temporary support more frequent. He convinced Madison that successful entrepreneurs often experience cash flow challenges while building their empires, and that truly supportive partners understood the importance of patience during the development phase of groundbreaking business ventures. Madison, desperate to prove her maturity and commitment to adult relationships after a series of disappointing college boyfriends, embraced the role of supportive partner with touching determination. She picked up additional shifts at the framing shop, sold pieces from her personal art collection, and even borrowed money from her small savings account to cover Trevor's contributions to rent groceries and utilities. Family dinners at my parents' house in Oak Park became increasingly uncomfortable as Trevor inserted himself into conversations about family finances and future planning with inappropriate familiarity. He would make comments about how successful families like ours had opportunities to help younger members achieve their potential, suggesting that financial support was not charity, but rather investment in family advancement. During my birthday dinner in March, Trevor had launched into a lengthy monologue about his difficult childhood in foster care, describing years of instability and financial insecurity that had taught him the value of family support systems. He painted a picture of himself as someone who had overcome tremendous obstacles through determination and hard work, but who still needed occasional assistance to reach his full potential. I had felt guilty for my skeptical reaction to Trevor's sob story, wondering if my protective instincts toward Madison were making me unfairly judgmental of someone who genuinely needed compassion and understanding. My parents especially My father seemed moved by Trevor's apparent vulnerability and impressed by his articulate descriptions of business strategies and market analysis. But underneath Trevor's smooth presentation, troubling patterns began to emerge that triggered my marketing professional's instincts for identifying deception and manipulation. He never provided specific details about his business ventures, deflecting direct questions with vague references to confidentiality agreements and investor sensitivities. His knowledge of market trends seemed superficial, more like information gathered from online articles than genuine expertise developed through real experience. Most concerning was Trevor's systematic collection of information about our family's financial situation and personal dynamics. He asked seemingly innocent questions about my job responsibilities and salary range, my parents' retirement planning and investment strategies, and even details about family inheritance and property ownership that no casual boyfriend should need to know. Trevor had convinced Madison that his financial research was motivated by his desire to contribute meaningfully to family discussions and eventually provide security for their future together. He positioned his questions as evidence of his commitment to becoming a responsible family member rather than signs of inappropriate boundary crossing and potential exploitation. The manipulation extended beyond financial matters into emotional territory that left Madison increasingly isolated from her support network and dependent on Trevor's approval for self-worth validation. He would praise her artistic talent while subtly undermining her confidence in her ability to succeed independently, suggesting that her art was beautiful, but perhaps too specialized for commercial success without proper business guidance and marketing expertise. Trevor had gradually convinced Madison that her family, particularly her successful older sister, did not fully appreciate her artistic gifts or understand the challenges facing creative professionals in competitive markets. He positioned himself as her primary advocate and protector, the only person who truly understood her potential and supported her dreams without judgment or conditions. As I processed my father's phone call in the airport terminal, I realized that Trevor's campaign to establish himself as an essential family member had been far more sophisticated and dangerous than any of us had recognized. He had not simply been freeloading off Madison's generosity, he'd been systematically gathering intelligence and building leverage for a much larger scheme to extract resources from our entire family network. The automatic doors of Terminal 3 slid open with a mechanical whisper as Madison and Trevor approached our departure gate, their rolling luggage creating a rhythmic clicking against the polished floor tiles. Madison's face displayed the nervous excitement typical of someone embarking on their first international adventure, while Trevor's expression carried the entitled confidence of someone who believed he deserved luxury experiences without earning them. I watched them approach with a growing sense of dread, knowing that the conversation we were about to have would permanently alter the relationships that had defined my adult life. Jake stood beside me, his hand resting protectively on my shoulder as he sensed the tension radiating from my rigid posture and clenched jaw. My parents had arrived 30 minutes earlier, my mother Linda looking confused and distressed, while my father Robert avoided direct eye contact with me, his guilty demeanor confirming that he understood the magnitude of the betrayal he was orchestrating. The boarding announcement for our Emirates flight echoed through the gate area, reminding us all that this confrontation had a definite timeline and would conclude with either resolution or devastation. Madison reached our small group first, her smile faltering as she noticed the strained atmosphere and my obviously upset emotional state. Trevor followed slightly behind, carrying himself with the swagger of someone who believed he had already won a contest that the rest of us were just beginning to understand. "Ashley, what's wrong?" Madison asked, her voice carrying genuine concern mixed with defensive anticipation. "Dad said there might be some confusion about the travel arrangements, but everything is going to work out fine, right?" The question hung in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle, creating a moment of silence that felt charged with electricity. I looked at each family member in turn, searching their faces for some sign of support or understanding, but finding only uncomfortable avoidance and misplaced loyalty. Madison. There are 6 seats on this airplane and 6 hotel reservations in Dubai. I said, my voice steady despite the emotional tornado spinning inside my chest. I planned and paid for this trip for our parents, you, me, Jake, and Trevor. But apparently, Dad has decided that Trevor should take my seat instead. Trevor immediately stepped forward, his practiced charm switching on like a theatrical spotlight as he prepared to deliver what was clearly a rehearsed performance. Ashley, I completely understand your surprise, and I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done to make this incredible experience possible for all of us. His tone was perfectly calibrated to sound reasonable and grateful, while simultaneously positioning himself as the reasonable party in an unreasonable situation. The truth is, this kind of family bonding experience means everything to Madison, and I know how important it is for couples to share these milestone moments together. Real families always find ways to support each other through challenges and make sure everyone feels included in the love and celebration. The manipulation in his words was so transparent that I felt insulted by his assumption that I would be swayed by such obvious emotional blackmail. But looking at my parents' faces, I realized that Trevor's strategy was working exactly as he had planned, appealing to their desire for family harmony while making me appear selfish for insisting on boundaries and fairness. Robert finally found the courage to meet my eyes, his expression carrying the weight of a man who knew he was making a terrible mistake, but felt trapped by commitments he should never have made. Ashley, sweetheart, I know this is difficult and unexpected, but Madison will be absolutely heartbroken if Trevor cannot come with us. You're strong enough to handle this kind of disappointment, but your sister is more fragile and needs our support right now. The words hit me like a physical blow, not just because of their inherent unfairness, but because they revealed how completely my father had been manipulated into viewing Trevor as a victim who deserved protection, rather than an opportunist who was exploiting our family's generosity. My strength, which had been developed through years of hard work and perseverance, was now being used as justification for treating me unfairly. Dad, I've spent $22,000 of my own money on this trip. I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to maintain dignity in this public setting. I've worked overtime for months to afford these reservations. I've planned every detail of this vacation as a gift to celebrate your birthday and our family. How can you possibly think it's acceptable to give my seat to someone who has never contributed anything to this family? Linda finally spoke, her voice shaking with emotions that seemed to include both anger and fear. Robert, you never told me about any conversations with Trevor about joining this trip, and you definitely never mentioned borrowing money to pay for additional expenses. The silence that followed my mother's words was deafening, broken only by the ambient noise of airport announcements and rolling luggage. Robert's face went pale as he realized that his secret financial arrangements were about to be exposed in front of the entire family. I had to make some adjustments to accommodate Trevor's travel needs, Robert said quietly, his defensive tone confirming Linda's worst suspicions. I took a small loan against the house to cover his airline upgrade and some additional hotel expenses. I was planning to discuss it with you after we returned from the trip. The shock on Linda's face was matched by my own horror as I realized that Trevor's manipulation had extended far beyond freeloading into actual financial fraud that put my parents' retirement security at risk. A $10,000 loan against their home equity to fund a stranger's luxury vacation was not just inappropriate, it was potentially catastrophic for their financial stability. Madison stood frozen between Trevor and the rest of us, her excitement about the trip dissolving into confusion and embarrassment as she began to understand that her fiancé had orchestrated this entire situation without her knowledge or consent. The fairy tale vacation she had been anticipating was revealing itself as the product of manipulation and deception. Trevor, sensing that the conversation was shifting away from his control, attempted to regain the initiative with another burst of practiced sincerity. "I never asked anyone to go into debt for my sake," he said, his voice carrying just the right note of wounded innocence. "If this is causing financial stress for the family, I'm perfectly willing to step aside and find another way to support Madison during this important celebration." But his offer rang hollow because we all knew that stepping aside at this point would mean forfeiting the luxury accommodations and experiences that had motivated his manipulation from the beginning. The damage to my relationship with my father and the family's financial situation had already been done, and Trevor's false generosity could not repair the trust that had been shattered. As the final boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, I realized that this moment would define not just our family dynamics going forward, but also my own understanding of self-respect and the boundaries I was willing to maintain even when they cost me everything I had worked to achieve. The decision to walk away from the departure gate required every ounce of dignity I had spent 28 years developing. But as I turned my back on the family vacation I had sacrificed so much to create, I knew that preserving my self-respect was more important than enabling their betrayal. Jake walked beside me through the terminal corridors, his protective presence providing the only comfort available in this moment of complete emotional devastation. We had made it halfway to the parking garage when my phone buzzed with a text message from Madison that made my blood run cold. "Ashley, you need to know that Trevor has been acting strange since we got to the gate. He's making phone calls and saying things that don't make sense. I'm scared about what's happening." Jake and I exchanged worried glances as we realized that Trevor's successful manipulation of the airport situation might be just the beginning of whatever scheme he had been developing. We decided to return to the terminal to observe from a distance, positioning ourselves near the gate area where we could monitor the situation without being directly involved in the family drama. What we witnessed over the next 20 minutes confirmed our worst suspicions about Trevor's true intentions and the sophistication of his manipulation tactics. He was pacing near the boarding area with his phone pressed against his ear, his voice carrying just enough for us to catch fragments of a conversation that revealed the calculated nature of his entire relationship with Madison. "The plan is working perfectly," Trevor said to whoever was on the other end of his call. "I've got them exactly where I need them, and the family is completely bought into the story. The older daughter tried to cause problems, but she's out of the picture now, and I have full access to their travel arrangements and personal information." Jake immediately began recording the conversation on his phone while I listened in growing horror as Trevor continued describing his strategy for exploiting my family's trust and generosity. He mentioned having insurance in case anyone tried to interfere with his plans, referring to documentation that would guarantee his continued access to family resources even if his relationship with Madison encountered difficulties. "I've been collecting information for months," Trevor explained to his phone contact. "Credit card numbers, social security digits, employment details, investment account information, everything I need to establish ongoing revenue streams. This Dubai trip is just the beginning of a much larger operation." The revelation that Trevor had been systematically gathering financial intelligence about my entire family transformed this situation from relationship drama into serious criminal activity that required immediate action to protect everyone involved. Jake and I realized that we had stumbled onto evidence of fraud that extended far beyond freeloading and manipulation into actual identity theft and financial crime. Trevor's next comments revealed the true scope of his scheme and the danger he represented to families beyond just ours. "I've been working this family for 8 months now, and I've got enough material to keep extracting money for years. The sisters' generosity with this trip has given me access to all their banking information and travel documents. Plus, I've got recordings of private family conversations that I can use as leverage if anyone tries to cut off the money flow." As Trevor continued his phone conversation, Madison approached him with growing suspicion about his behavior and the nature of his private discussions. We watched from our concealed position as she demanded to see his phone, leading to an argument that attracted attention from other passengers and airport security personnel. "Who were you talking to?" Madison asked, her voice carrying a mixture of confusion and fear. "And what did you mean about recordings and leverage, Trevor? You're scaring me with all this secretive behavior." Trevor attempted to deflect her questions with his usual charm offensive, but the pressure of maintaining multiple deceptions simultaneously had clearly begun to overwhelm his ability to manipulate the situation effectively. His explanations became increasingly contradictory and defensive as Madison's suspicions grew stronger. "I was just talking to a business contact about some upcoming opportunities," Trevor said, his practiced sincerity beginning to crack under scrutiny. "You know how important it is for entrepreneurs to maintain professional relationships and explore new revenue possibilities." But Madison was no longer satisfied with vague explanations and smooth deflections. She grabbed his phone and began scrolling through his recent calls and text messages, discovering a trail of communications that revealed the extent of his deception and planning. Her face went pale as she read messages referring to target families and extraction schedules that clearly had nothing to do with legitimate business activities. "Trevor, there are recordings on your phone," Madison said, her voice shaking with disbelief. "Recordings of conversations with my family, including private discussions about personal and financial matters. Why do you have these? What are you planning to do with them?" The recordings Madison discovered included conversations from family dinners, holiday gatherings, and private moments that Trevor had secretly captured using his phone's recording capabilities. The files were labeled with dates and topics, suggesting a systematic approach to gathering intelligence that had been ongoing since the early stages of his relationship with Madison. Most devastatingly, the recordings revealed Trevor's true feelings about his relationship with Madison and his contempt for the family that had welcomed him into their lives. In conversations with unknown contacts, Trevor referred to Madison as the perfect mark and described her artistic aspirations as useful cover for explaining why she can't support herself financially. He had recorded private conversations between my parents about their retirement savings, investment accounts, and inheritance planning information that could be used to target them for additional financial fraud or identity theft. He had captured personal details about my career, salary, and professional relationships that suggested plans to eventually target my employer or professional network for larger-scale fraud. The most chilling recordings were conversations where Trevor mocked my generosity and described me as the golden goose, whose dedication to family harmony made her the perfect target for long-term financial exploitation. He had been planning to use this Dubai trip as the foundation for ongoing requests for family funding, positioning himself as someone who deserved continued support because of his connection to Madison and his integration into family activities. As Madison confronted Trevor with the evidence of his recordings and manipulation, other passengers began to notice the escalating argument and the obvious distress of everyone involved. Airport security approached the gate area to investigate the disturbance, creating additional pressure on Trevor to maintain his facade while managing multiple crisis situations simultaneously. Jake and I realized that this was our opportunity to intervene before Trevor could manipulate his way out of the consequences of his actions or convince Madison that his behavior had innocent explanations. We emerged from our observation position and approached the gate area, prepared to provide Madison with the support she needed to escape from Trevor's psychological control and protect herself from further manipulation. The choice between causing an even bigger public spectacle and preserving what remained of my family's dignity became clear as I watched Trevor's manipulation tactics unravel under Madison's scrutiny. Rather than escalate the confrontation further, I made the conscious decision to remove myself from the toxic situation while maintaining control over the travel arrangements that remained legally and financially under my authority. Every hotel reservation, restaurant booking, and activity coordination was registered under my name and required my identification and credit card information to access. Trevor might have manipulated his way onto the airplane, but he would discover that securing a seat was only the first step in a luxury vacation that required ongoing authorization from the person who had planned and funded every detail. Jake and I collected our luggage and began the long walk back through the terminal toward the parking garage, each step representing a choice to prioritize self-respect over family harmony. The weight of $22,000 in lost expenses felt less crushing than the weight of enabling Trevor's manipulation and rewarding my father's betrayal with compliance and acceptance. "I know this is incredibly difficult," Jake said as we navigated through the crowded terminal corridors, "but I think you're making the right choice by refusing to participate in this dysfunction. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for people is refuse to enable their poor decisions." As we reached the parking garage, Jake pulled out his phone and showed me a collection of photos and voice recordings he had been discreetly gathering over the past several weeks. His background in corporate security had taught him to recognize patterns of behavior that suggested potential fraud or manipulation, and Trevor's actions had triggered enough red flags to warrant documentation. "I've been watching Trevor's behavior at family gatherings," Jake explained, scrolling through time-stamped evidence on his phone screen. "I photographed him going through your purse during Easter dinner while you were helping your mother in the kitchen. I recorded him making phone calls about upcoming opportunities with wealthy connections when he thought everyone was distracted by television." The evidence Jake had collected painted a picture of systematic intelligence gathering that had been occurring for months without any family member recognizing the threat. Photos showed Trevor photographing family documents that had been left on kitchen counters, including bank statements, insurance papers, and tax documents that contained sensitive financial information. Voice recordings captured Trevor making calls where he discussed establishing trust with target families and maximizing extraction potential through relationship-based manipulation. His conversations revealed a level of planning and coordination that suggested professional-level fraud experience rather than opportunistic freeloading. I suspected Trevor was planning something bigger than just taking advantage of Madison's generosity, Jake continued as we drove out of the airport parking structure. These patterns match techniques used in romance scams and family exploitation schemes that target middle-class families with accessible assets and trusting personalities. The drive home through Chicago's evening traffic gave us time to process the magnitude of what had just occurred and begin planning our response to Trevor's criminal activities. Jake's security background provided valuable insight into the legal steps needed to protect my family from further exploitation and ensure that Trevor faced consequences for his fraudulent behavior. "We need to contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Division." Jake said, his professional experience evident in his systematic approach to the situation. "Romance scams that cross state lines and involve identity theft fall under federal jurisdiction, especially when there's evidence of coordinated criminal activity." As we reached my apartment in Lincoln Park, the reality of the evening's events began to settle into my consciousness with the weight of a collapsed building. The family vacation I had dreamed about for months was proceeding without me, funded by my money and planned with my effort, while I sat in my living room trying to piece together the fragments of relationships that had been shattered by manipulation and misplaced loyalty. The first phone call came from Madison 20 minutes after their flight had taken off, her voice barely audible over the engine noise and her own emotional distress. "Ashley, I found more recordings on Trevor's phone. He's been secretly recording conversations with all of us for months. I don't know what to do or who to trust anymore." The pain in Madison's voice confirmed that she was finally beginning to understand the extent of Trevor's deception and manipulation, but her realization had come too late to prevent the disaster that was now unfolding 30,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. She was trapped on an international flight with a criminal who'd been systematically exploiting her trust and gathering intelligence to defraud our entire family. Madison listened to me very carefully. I said, switching into crisis management mode despite my own emotional turmoil. "Do not let Trevor out of your sight. Do not give him access to any family documents or personal information, and do not sign anything or authorize any changes to our hotel reservations or activity bookings. Jake was already on his laptop researching international fraud reporting procedures and contacting law enforcement agencies that could coordinate with Dubai authorities to ensure Trevor's criminal activities were properly documented and investigated. The evidence we had gathered would be crucial for building a case that could prevent Trevor from targeting other families with similar schemes. The irony was not lost on me that my decision to walk away from the family vacation had actually positioned me to protect my family more effectively than if I had complied with my father's manipulation and enabled Trevor's continued access to our resources and information. Sometimes refusing to participate in dysfunction creates the space needed for truth to emerge and justice to prevail. The morning after my family's departure brought a strange mixture of relief and determination as Jake and I began the systematic investigation that would ultimately save my family from financial devastation and help protect countless other families from Trevor's criminal enterprise. Jake's background in corporate security provided the expertise needed to properly document and report the evidence we had collected, while my marketing skills proved valuable for organizing information and identifying patterns in Trevor's behavior. Our first step was to secure my father's financial accounts and protect his credit rating from the damage that Trevor's fraudulent activities could inflict. With the power of attorney documents I had obtained months earlier for vacation planning purposes, I was able to access Robert's credit reports and banking information to assess the full scope of the potential damage. What we discovered exceeded our worst fears about Trevor's criminal sophistication and long-term planning. In addition to the $10,000 loan Robert had disclosed at the airport, we found evidence of 2 credit card accounts that had been opened in my father's name using applications that contained accurate personal information but contact details that led directly to Trevor. The fraudulent applications had been submitted over the past 3 months using a combination of information Trevor had gathered during family dinners and documents he had photographed during his visits to my parents' house. His systematic approach to identity theft demonstrated professional-level experience with financial fraud that suggested a criminal background far more extensive than simple relationship manipulation. Jake's investigation revealed that Trevor's true identity was actually Thomas Vernon Richards, a 31-year-old career criminal with arrests in Ohio, Colorado, and Pennsylvania, for charges ranging from credit card fraud to elder abuse. The difficult childhood and foster care story that had generated so much sympathy from my family was completely fabricated, designed to create emotional manipulation opportunities while deflecting questions about his background and employment history. Trevor's real background shows a pattern of targeting families through romantic relationships, Jake explained, showing me arrest records and court documents he had obtained through legal databases. He typically spends 6 to 12 months building trust with a young woman from a middle-class family, then uses that relationship to gain access to family financial information and personal documents. The most disturbing discovery was evidence that Trevor had been researching my employment at Henderson Communications and gathering information about my professional responsibilities and client relationships. Documents on his laptop suggested plans to eventually approach my employer with fraudulent business proposals or attempt to manipulate my professional contacts for financial gain. He's been building profiles on all of your family members. Jake continued scrolling through files that contained detailed financial information, personal schedules, and social relationships. This level of planning suggests he was preparing for a long-term fraud operation that could have cost your family hundreds of thousands of dollars over several years. While we worked to secure my family's financial information and document Trevor's criminal activities, disturbing reports began arriving from Dubai that confirmed our fears about his behavior during the luxury vacation I had funded. The Burj Al Arab Hotel management called me directly when Trevor attempted to authorize additional charges and room upgrades using forged family authorization documents. Mr. Richards presented documents claiming to have authorization from the account holder to approve additional services. The hotel manager explained during our international phone call. However, the signatures and formatting appeared suspicious, so we contacted you directly to verify the authenticity of these requests. The forged documents Trevor had presented to the hotel included fake letters of authorization, bearing my forged signature and fictitious family power of attorney agreements that would have given him complete control over all vacation expenses and accommodations. His attempt to manipulate the hotel's luxury services revealed the audacious scope of his criminal ambitions and his willingness to commit fraud on an international scale. Hotel security had become involved when Trevor became aggressive and threatening towards staff members who questioned his authorization documents, creating the kind of public disturbance that attracts attention from local law enforcement agencies. The incident report documented Trevor's hostile behavior and provided additional evidence of his criminal mindset when his manipulation tactics failed to achieve desired results. Meanwhile, Madison's phone calls from Dubai painted a picture of escalating chaos as Trevor's true personality emerged under the stress of his failed fraud attempts and the family's growing awareness of his deception. Without the protection of familiar surroundings and established manipulation routines, Trevor was struggling to maintain the charming facade that had enabled his access to our family's trust and resources. He's been screaming at hotel staff and embarrassing our entire family, Madison reported during one of her tearful phone calls. Dad and Mom are horrified by his behavior, and I'm starting to understand that everything about our relationship has been a lie designed to take advantage of my family's generosity. The reports from Dubai confirmed that Trevor's manipulation had been entirely dependent on maintaining control over information and circumstances skills that proved ineffective when confronted with professional security procedures and international fraud prevention protocols. His criminal enterprise was unraveling precisely because he had overestimated his ability to manipulate luxury service providers and underestimated the sophistication of international fraud detection systems. Jake and I realized that Trevor's arrest was inevitable, given the evidence we had gathered and the international nature of his fraudulent activities. Our focus shifted to ensuring that all of his victims, including families from his previous scams, would have the information needed to pursue justice and recover their stolen assets. We need to coordinate with the FBI's white-collar crime division, Jake advised, organizing the evidence files we had compiled. This case involves interstate fraud, identity theft, and international criminal activity that requires federal investigation and prosecution. The investigation we had begun as a desperate attempt to protect my family was evolving into a comprehensive effort to dismantle a criminal operation that had been targeting American families for years. Trevor's sophisticated manipulation tactics and systematic approach to relationship-based fraud represented a threat that extended far beyond our personal situation into a public safety issue requiring coordinated law enforcement response. The international phone calls from Dubai began arriving at increasingly frequent intervals as Trevor's criminal behavior escalated beyond mere financial fraud into public disturbances that attracted the attention of hotel security, local police, and international fraud investigators. Each conversation with hotel management or family members revealed new layers of Trevor's deception and provided additional evidence for the criminal case building against him. The Burj Al Arab's head of security contacted me directly when Trevor's attempts to manipulate hotel services evolved from forged authorization documents to actual theft of guest property from other hotel rooms. Surveillance footage had captured Trevor using a cloned key card to access rooms registered under different names, removing jewelry and electronic devices that he apparently intended to sell through online marketplaces. Mr. Richards has been systematically targeting high-value guest rooms during cleaning periods when housekeeping staff are distracted, the security director explained during our video conference call. We have documented evidence of theft, fraud, and aggressive behavior toward our staff members that violates both hotel policies and UAE federal laws regarding guest conduct and criminal activity. The stolen items included designer watches, jewelry, and personal electronics that Trevor had been photographing and listing for sale on international auction websites using fake seller accounts registered under various aliases. His theft operation demonstrated the same systematic approach and professional planning that had characterized his manipulation of my family's trust and resources. Hotel management had initially attempted to handle Trevor's behavior through internal disciplinary procedures, hoping to avoid negative publicity and maintain the luxury atmosphere that attracted their international clientele. However, Trevor's escalating aggression and increasingly bold criminal activities had made police involvement inevitable. Mr. Richards became verbally abusive and physically threatening when confronted about the unauthorized charges and theft allegations. The security director continued. Our staff members felt unsafe, and several guests complained about his disruptive behavior in public areas of the hotel. The situation had deteriorated further when Trevor attempted to use my father's credit card information to book an expensive yacht charter in Dubai Marina without authorization from either Robert or the credit card company. The yacht charter company's fraud prevention systems had triggered alerts that resulted in immediate contact with Dubai police and international banking security departments. Madison's phone calls from their hotel suite painted an even more disturbing picture of Trevor's psychological breakdown as his criminal schemes began collapsing under scrutiny from law enforcement agencies and hospitality industry security professionals. Without the familiar environment of American middle-class family dynamics that he had learned to manipulate, Trevor was revealing the violent and unstable personality that had been hidden beneath his charming facade. He's been screaming at everyone and blaming our family for ruining his opportunities. Madison sobbed during one particularly distressing phone call. He says we never appreciated his potential and that we deliberately sabotaged his chances for success by questioning his background and intentions. Trevor's paranoid rants revealed his genuine belief that he was entitled to exploit other people's generosity and that any resistance to his manipulation represented unfair persecution of his legitimate right to access family resources. His complete lack of empathy or accountability demonstrated the sociopathic personality traits that had enabled him to systematically manipulate multiple families without experiencing guilt or remorse. Robert and Linda were experiencing their own emotional crisis as they witnessed Trevor's true personality and began to understand the magnitude of the financial and legal dangers they had invited into their lives. The man they had defended as a victim of circumstance was revealing himself as a predatory criminal who had specifically targeted their family for exploitation. Dad keeps apologizing and saying he never imagined Trevor was capable of this kind of behavior, Madison reported. Mom is terrified about the financial damage he might have already done to their retirement accounts and credit rating. The yacht charter incident had resulted in the freezing of multiple family credit cards and bank accounts as financial institutions implemented emergency fraud protection procedures. The security measures, while necessary for protecting against further theft, created immediate cash flow problems for my family members who were stranded in Dubai with limited access to their own money. Hotel management had moved my family to a different suite and provided additional security measures to protect them from Trevor's increasingly erratic and threatening behavior. The luxury vacation that was supposed to celebrate family bonds and create lasting memories had become a nightmare of criminal investigation, international legal complications, and emotional trauma. Dubai police had begun their own investigation into Trevor's activities, working in coordination with American law enforcement agencies to build a comprehensive case that would ensure appropriate prosecution and punishment. The international nature of his crimes meant that he would face charges in multiple jurisdictions, with penalties that could include significant prison time and financial restitution to all of his victims. Jake and I continued coordinating with various law enforcement agencies from Chicago, providing evidence and documentation that supported the international investigation while working to minimize the financial and legal consequences for my family members. The systematic approach we had taken to gathering evidence was proving crucial for building a solid criminal case that would prevent Trevor from manipulating the justice system as effectively as he had manipulated my family's emotions. The irony was becoming clear that my decision to walk away from the Dubai trip had not only protected me from direct involvement in Trevor's criminal activities, but had also positioned me to provide the most effective assistance to law enforcement agencies and family members who needed support during this crisis. Sometimes the most powerful action is the refusal to participate in dysfunction, creating space for truth to emerge and justice to prevail. The comprehensive background investigation Jake and I had initiated revealed connections between Trevor's criminal activities and a sophisticated network of romance scam artists operating across multiple states targeting middle-class American families through carefully orchestrated relationship-based fraud schemes. Working with a private investigator Jake had contacted through his corporate security network, we began uncovering evidence that Trevor's manipulation of my family was part of a much larger criminal enterprise. The private investigator Sarah Chen specialized in romance scam investigations and had been tracking similar cases across the Midwest for the past 3 years. Her database contained information about dozens of families who'd been targeted by criminals using techniques nearly identical to Trevor's systematic approach to relationship manipulation and financial exploitation. Trevor Richards has been operating under multiple identities across at least 5 different states, Sarah explained during our meeting at her downtown Chicago office. He typically spends 8 to 12 months building trust with a target family, then extracts as much money as possible before moving on to the next opportunity. The evidence Sarah had collected included social media profiles Trevor maintained under various names, documenting his relationships with different women and their families, while sharing strategies and techniques with other scam artists through private online forums. The posts revealed a disturbing level of coordination and professional development within the romance scam community. Most shocking was Trevor's detailed documentation of his manipulation techniques, including psychological profiles he had created for each family member and step-by-step plans for extracting maximum financial benefit from their relationships. The files contained intimate details about family dynamics, personal insecurities, and financial vulnerabilities that he had gathered through months of careful observation and conversation. He's been treating your family like a research project. Sarah continued showing us printed copies of Trevor's online posts. These forums teach criminals how to identify emotionally vulnerable targets, build dependency relationships, and manipulate family loyalty to override logical financial decision-making. The online posts revealed Trevor's contempt for his victims and his genuine belief that middle-class families deserved to be exploited because of their naive trust and excessive generosity toward people they considered family members. His descriptions of manipulation techniques were coldly analytical, treating human emotions and family bonds as tools for financial gain. Even more disturbing was evidence that Trevor had been researching my professional background and employer gathering information that suggested plans to eventually target Henderson Communications for business fraud or manipulation of client relationships. Documents on his laptop included organizational charts, client lists, and project information that he should not have had access to without inside knowledge of my work responsibilities. He was building a comprehensive intelligence profile that would have enabled him to manipulate your professional network for years, Sarah explained. This level of planning suggests he was preparing for a long-term fraud operation that could have destroyed your career, as well as your family's financial security. The investigation also revealed that Trevor had outstanding warrants for his arrest in Colorado, where he had defrauded a previous girlfriend's family out of $30,000 through a fake business emergency scheme. The Colorado case involved forged business documents, identity theft, and emotional manipulation techniques nearly identical to those he had used on my family. The Colorado victims went through exactly what your family is experiencing, Sarah said, showing us police reports and victim statements from the previous case. Trevor convinced the girlfriend that her family was obligated to help fund his business venture, then used their financial information to commit credit card fraud and identity theft. The Colorado investigation had been stalled because Trevor had disappeared before arrest warrants could be served, leaving behind a trail of financial damage and emotional trauma that had taken the victim family months to resolve. The evidence we were providing would enable law enforcement agencies to connect multiple cases and build a comprehensive prosecution that would prevent Trevor from continuing his criminal activities. Jake's corporate security background proved invaluable for organizing the evidence in formats that would be most useful for law enforcement agencies and prosecutors building criminal cases. His experience with fraud investigation had taught him to document financial crimes in ways that would withstand legal scrutiny and provide clear evidence of criminal intent and systematic planning. We need to ensure that every piece of evidence is properly authenticated and documented according to legal standards. Jake advised organizing files and timestamps for each piece of documentation. The defense attorneys will try to challenge the admissibility of evidence, so we need to be absolutely thorough in our documentation procedures. The evidence mounting against Trevor included financial fraud, identity theft, interstate criminal activity, and international fraud that would result in federal charges with significant prison sentences. The systematic nature of his crimes and the multiple victim families involved would likely result in prosecution under organized crime statutes that carried enhanced penalties. Sarah's investigation had also identified other potential victims who had not yet realized they had been targeted by Trevor's criminal network, including families in Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan, where similar romance scams had been reported but not yet connected to Trevor's activities. Our evidence would enable law enforcement to contact these families and provide them with information needed to protect themselves from ongoing fraud. The FBI's White-Collar Crime Division has been looking for exactly this kind of comprehensive evidence to build a case against this fraud network, Sarah explained. Your documentation and Jake's security expertise have provided the missing pieces needed to connect multiple cases and identify the full scope of their criminal enterprise. The realization that our investigation was helping to protect other families from the trauma and financial devastation we had experienced provided some measure of meaning to the betrayal and emotional pain my family had endured. Trevor's manipulation had caused tremendous damage, but exposing his criminal activities would prevent him from destroying other families' trust and financial security. The emergency phone call from Linda came at 3 o'clock in the morning, Chicago time, her voice shaking with a combination of fear, anger, and devastating recognition that the man they had welcomed into their family was a dangerous criminal who had been systematically planning to destroy their financial security and emotional well-being. "Ashley, you have to help us." Linda sobbed into the international connection. "We found Trevor in our hotel room going through our personal belongings in the middle of the night. He was photographing our passports, credit cards, and insurance documents with his phone camera." The discovery had occurred when Linda woke up to use the bathroom and noticed light coming from the sitting area of their luxury suite. Instead of finding Trevor unable to sleep, she had discovered him methodically photographing every document in Robert's wallet and her purse, including Social Security cards, driver's licenses, and banking information that could be used for identity theft and financial fraud. When I confronted him, he became aggressive and threatening. Linda continued, her voice filled with terror at the memory. "He said that successful families like ours should be grateful for his protection and that he deserved compensation for keeping our family secrets safe from people who might want to hurt us." The confrontation had escalated when Robert woke up and found Trevor attempting to intimidate Linda into giving him additional personal information and banking passwords. Trevor's mask of charming manipulation had completely fallen away, revealing the violent criminal personality that had been hidden beneath months of carefully constructed deception. Hotel security had responded immediately when Linda activated the emergency alert system, finding Trevor in possession of photographed financial documents and a collection of jewelry that had been reported stolen from other guest rooms throughout the hotel. The evidence of systematic theft and fraud had triggered immediate involvement from Dubai police and international crime investigators. The police found a whole operation on his laptop computer. Robert reported during a follow-up call. He's been running similar scams on families across America, and our situation is just one part of a much bigger criminal enterprise. Dubai police had discovered that Trevor's laptop contained detailed profiles of dozens of American families complete with financial information, personal schedules, and psychological manipulation strategies tailored to each target family's specific vulnerabilities and relationship dynamics. The files revealed a criminal operation far more sophisticated and dangerous than anyone had imagined. Most devastating for Madison was the discovery that Trevor had been selling her artwork online under his own name, while simultaneously using her artistic talent as a cover story for romance scams targeting other families. He had stolen pieces from her studio apartment and created fake artist profiles that he used to establish credibility with potential victims. "He's been using my paintings to trick other families into trusting him," Madison cried during one of her calls from Dubai. "I found listings on auction websites where he's selling my work and claiming to be the artist. Everything about our relationship has been a lie designed to steal from me and my family." The artwork theft represented a particularly cruel form of exploitation, because Trevor had not only stolen Madison's physical creations, but had also appropriated her artistic identity to facilitate fraud against other families. The emotional impact of this betrayal was devastating for Madison, who had genuinely believed that Trevor supported and admired her creative talents. Dubai police had also uncovered evidence that Trevor had been researching other wealthy hotel guests and planning additional theft operations that would have expanded his criminal activities beyond targeting my family into broader hospitality industry fraud. His systematic approach to gathering intelligence and identifying opportunities demonstrated professional-level criminal planning. The detective said Trevor has been planning this for months. Robert reported, his voice heavy with guilt and self-recrimination. They found detailed schedules of our family activities, maps of our neighborhood, and even information about our neighbors and friends that he was planning to use for future schemes. The international investigation was revealing connections between Trevor's activities and criminal networks operating across Europe and Asia, suggesting that his romance scam operation was part of a global fraud enterprise, targeting affluent families through sophisticated relationship manipulation techniques. Hotel management had moved my family to a secure floor with additional security measures, while Dubai police completed their investigation and prepared for Trevor's arrest and extradition proceedings. The luxury vacation that was supposed to create lasting family memories had become a criminal investigation that would be remembered for very different reasons. Jake and I continued coordinating with law enforcement agencies from Chicago, providing additional evidence and documentation that supported the international prosecution, while working to minimize the legal and financial consequences for my family members who had been unwittingly manipulated into enabling Trevor's criminal activities. The most important development was my family's growing recognition that their defense of Trevor and rejection of my concerns had been the result of sophisticated psychological manipulation rather than genuine family loyalty or sound judgment. The evidence of Trevor's criminal planning was helping them understand that my resistance to his integration into our family had been protective rather than selfish. "I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you," Robert said during one particularly emotional phone call. "You were trying to protect us from someone dangerous, and I was too proud and stubborn to recognize what was really happening." The apologies and recognition of my protective instincts provided some emotional healing, but the real satisfaction was knowing that Trevor's criminal enterprise was being dismantled and that other families would be protected from the manipulation and financial exploitation that had caused so much damage to our relationships and trust. The coordination between American and international law enforcement agencies reached its culmination on the fourth day of my family's Dubai vacation, when the comprehensive evidence Jake and I had gathered combined with Dubai police investigations to create an ironclad criminal case that would ensure Trevor faced justice in multiple jurisdictions for his systematic fraud and manipulation activities. Unknown to my family members or Trevor himself, I had been working closely with Special Agent Rebecca Martinez from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division since discovering the full scope of Trevor's criminal background. Agent Martinez specialized in international romance scam operations and had been investigating the criminal network that Trevor belonged to for over 18 months. Your evidence has provided the missing connections we needed to understand how this fraud ring operates, Agent Martinez explained during our secure video conference from her Chicago field office. Trevor Richards is a significant target, but he's also the key to dismantling a much larger criminal enterprise that has been targeting American families for years. The FBI had been coordinating with Interpol and Dubai's Economic Security Department to monitor Trevor's activities throughout the vacation, allowing him enough freedom to commit additional crimes that would strengthen the criminal case while ensuring that my family remained safe from physical harm or further financial exploitation. We've been documenting everything Trevor has done since arriving in Dubai. Agent Martinez continued. The hotel theft fraud attempts and intimidation tactics have all been recorded and will be used as evidence in federal court proceedings. The moment Trevor made his extortion threats against my family, demanding money to disappear quietly and threatening to expose family secrets he triggered a coordinated response that had been planned and rehearsed by law enforcement agencies in both countries. Dubai police officers, accompanied by FBI liaisons and hotel security personnel, arrived at the Burj Al Arab with arrest warrants, extradition papers, and seizure orders for all of Trevor's electronic devices and personal property. The arrest was conducted with precision timing that prevented Trevor from destroying evidence or manipulating the situation through his practiced charm and intimidation techniques. Trevor Richards, you are under arrest for international fraud, identity theft, interstate criminal activity, and violation of Dubai financial crime statutes, the lead Dubai detective announced as Trevor was taken into custody in the hotel lobby, creating a scene that attracted attention from luxury guests and international media outlets. The electronic evidence seized from Trevor's laptop and phone confirmed the full scope of his criminal enterprise, including detailed profiles of over 40 American families he had targeted or planned to target through romance scam operations. The files contain step-by-step manipulation strategies, financial intelligence, and coordination plans with other scam artists operating across multiple continents. The evidence on Trevor's devices has connected him to romance scam operations in 12 different states and 3 foreign countries. Agent Martinez reported during our follow-up briefing. Your family's case has become the cornerstone for prosecuting an entire criminal network that has stolen millions of dollars from American families. The international cooperation aspect of the investigation had enabled law enforcement agencies to track financial transfers, communication networks, and coordination systems that revealed the true sophistication of modern romance scam operations. Trevor's arrest would lead to additional arrests and prosecutions that would protect countless families from similar exploitation. Most satisfying was the revelation that Trevor's own arrogance and systematic documentation of his criminal activities had provided law enforcement with comprehensive evidence that would make conviction inevitable and enable maximum sentences under both American and international law. Criminals like Trevor often believe they're too smart to get caught, Agent Martinez observed. His detailed records of manipulation techniques and victim profiles will be used to educate law enforcement agencies and help other families recognize similar threats before they become victims. The arrest had been coordinated to occur in Dubai rather than allowing Trevor to return to American soil, ensuring that he would face additional charges under international law that carried enhanced penalties for crimes committed against foreign tourists and guests of UAE hospitality establishments. Jake's corporate security expertise had proven invaluable for organizing evidence in formats that met international legal standards and could be used effectively by prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions. His systematic approach to documentation had created a paper trail that clearly demonstrated Trevor's criminal intent and sophisticated planning. The quality of evidence you and Jake compiled exceeded professional law enforcement standards. Agent Martinez commended during our debriefing session. Your investigation provided crucial intelligence that will prevent this criminal network from targeting other families and will ensure that all of Trevor's victims receive justice and financial restitution. The coordination with Dubai authorities had also enabled the recovery of stolen property from other hotel guests and the identification of additional criminal activities that Trevor had been planning during the vacation. His systematic theft operation had been more extensive than initially discovered, involving multiple hotels and tourist locations throughout Dubai. International media coverage of Trevor's arrest and the broader criminal network investigation had attracted attention from law enforcement agencies in other countries where similar romance scam operations had been reported but not yet prosecuted. The evidence we provided was enabling international cooperation efforts that would protect families worldwide. Your decision to walk away from the family vacation and investigate Trevor's background independently created the opportunity for this successful prosecution, Agent Martinez concluded. Sometimes the most powerful action is refusing to participate in manipulation, creating space for truth to emerge and justice to be served. The arrest marked the beginning of a complex legal process that would involve testimony, evidence presentation, and coordination between multiple legal systems. But the comprehensive nature of the evidence ensured that Trevor would face significant prison time and would be required to provide financial restitution to all of his victims. The emotional aftermath of Trevor's arrest created space for genuine healing and reconciliation within our family relationships, as the shocking evidence of his criminal sophistication helped everyone understand that his manipulation had been professional-level psychological warfare rather than simple relationship dynamics that should have been easier to recognize and resist. Robert's transformation was the most profound, as the man who had chosen Trevor over his own daughter just days earlier now understood that his decision had been the result of calculated manipulation designed specifically to exploit his desire for family harmony and his protective instincts toward Madison's happiness and emotional well-being. "I've been thinking about every conversation I had with Trevor," Robert said during our first family video call after the arrest. "He knew exactly what to say to make me feel like supporting him was the right thing to do for our family. I was so focused on avoiding conflict that I couldn't see how he was using my own values against me." The FBI investigation had revealed that Trevor's manipulation techniques included extensive research into family psychology and relationship dynamics, allowing him to tailor his approach to each family member's specific personality traits and emotional vulnerabilities. His success at manipulating Robert was not a failure of judgment, but rather evidence of sophisticated criminal skills. Linda's anger toward Trevor was matched by her gratitude toward me for refusing to enable his manipulation and maintaining boundaries that had ultimately protected the family from even greater financial and emotional damage. Her initial confusion about the airport confrontation had transformed into recognition that my difficult behavior had been protective rather than selfish. "You were the only one strong enough to see through Trevor's lies and refuse to participate in his manipulation," Linda acknowledged during one of our international phone calls. "While we were being fooled by his charm, you were gathering evidence and working with law enforcement to protect all of us." The most heartbreaking revelation came from Madison's discovery of additional evidence on Trevor's devices showing that he had been secretly photographing her personal belongings, family photos, and private documents to use in identity theft schemes, targeting not only our family, but also her friends and professional contacts from the art community. He was planning to use my address book and social media contacts to find other families to target. Madison revealed, her voice shaking with the magnitude of betrayal she was processing. Everyone I care about was potentially at risk because I brought this predator into our lives. Trevor's systematic violation of Madison's privacy extended beyond financial fraud into personal territory that demonstrated his complete lack of empathy or human decency. He had photographed intimate family moments, private correspondence, and personal artwork that Madison had never intended to share with anyone outside our immediate family circle. The investigation had also uncovered Trevor's plans to blackmail family members using personal information and private conversations he had recorded, including discussions about my previous struggles with anxiety and therapy, that he planned to use against my professional reputation if I interfered with his access to family resources. The detective showed us files where Trevor had detailed plans to destroy your career if you tried to expose his criminal activities. Robert reported, his voice filled with horror at the depth of Trevor's malicious planning. He wasn't just stealing money, he was prepared to destroy our entire family's reputation and professional relationships. This revelation particularly devastated Robert because it demonstrated that his choice to support Trevor at the airport had not only been manipulated, but could have resulted in catastrophic consequences for my career and financial security if Trevor's blackmail schemes had been successful. The evidence of Trevor's malicious planning helped our family understand that the emotional manipulation we had experienced was part of a systematic psychological assault designed to isolate family members from each other and create dependency relationships that would enable long-term financial exploitation. I keep thinking about how he made me feel guilty for questioning his background or asking about his employment. Madison reflected during one of our healing conversations. He convinced me that doubting him meant I wasn't supportive of our relationship when actually my instincts were trying to protect me from someone dangerous. The family therapy sessions we began after their return from Dubai focused on understanding manipulation techniques and rebuilding trust relationships that had been damaged by Trevor's systematic interference. The therapist helped us recognize that falling victim to professional-level manipulation was not a personal failure, but rather evidence of normal human trust and empathy being exploited by someone with criminal expertise. Sophisticated manipulators like Trevor study human psychology and relationship dynamics specifically to exploit the healthy emotions and behaviors that make families function, our therapist, Dr. Sarah Williams, explained. Your family's willingness to trust and support each other was actually a strength that Trevor weaponized for criminal purposes. The healing process involved not only processing the trauma of betrayal, but also celebrating the family bonds and values that had ultimately enabled our survival and recovery. My refusal to participate in dysfunction had created space for truth to emerge, while Jake's protective instincts and investigative skills had provided the evidence needed for justice. Robert's commitment to rebuilding our relationship included concrete steps to address the financial damage his manipulation by Trevor had caused, including refinancing the house loan and implementing new financial security measures to prevent future exploitation. His recognition of my protective instincts and investigative efforts marked a fundamental shift in family dynamics. I'm proud of you for having the courage to stand up for what was right, even when it meant standing against your own family, Robert said during one particularly emotional conversation. Your strength and integrity saved us from someone who could have destroyed everything we've worked to build together. The comprehensive investigation into Trevor's criminal activities revealed layers of betrayal that extended far beyond financial fraud into the systematic theft and exploitation of Madison's artistic identity and creative work, transforming her from a victim of romance manipulation into a survivor whose experience would ultimately strengthen her artistic voice and professional independence. The most devastating discovery came when FBI investigators found an entire online art sales operation that Trevor had been running using Madison's paintings and sculptures, selling her legitimate artwork under his own name, while creating fake artist profiles that he used to establish credibility with other potential romance scam victims across the country. Trevor has been stealing my paintings from our apartment for months. Madison revealed during one of her calls from Dubai, her voice carrying a mixture of heartbreak and growing anger. I thought some pieces were just misplaced or that I had forgotten where I stored them, but he was systematically taking my best work and selling it online. The stolen artwork included pieces that Madison had been preparing for her first solo gallery, showing original paintings that represented months of creative development and emotional expression. Trevor had not only robbed her of potential income, but had also stolen opportunities for professional recognition and artistic advancement that could have established her career. FBI agents had discovered sophisticated online auction listings where Trevor presented himself as an emerging artist from Chicago, using professional photographs of Madison's artwork alongside fabricated artist statements and fictional biographical information. The sales had generated thousands of dollars in revenue that Trevor had used to fund his lifestyle while living off Madison's generosity. He was using my talent and hard work to create a false identity that made him seem successful and creative to other families he was targeting. Madison continued processing the full scope of how her artistic gifts had been exploited. My paintings were being used as props in other romance scams involving families who thought they were supporting a struggling but talented artist. The investigation revealed that Trevor's theft of Madison's artistic identity had been systematic and planned from the beginning of their relationship. He had been photographing her work in progress during studio visits, documenting her creative techniques and artistic development to use in fake portfolio presentations and fraudulent artist applications. Trevor even applied for gallery exhibitions and art grants using my work and his name. Madison discovered as the evidence continued to emerge. He was building an entire artistic career based on stealing my creativity, while convincing me that I needed his business expertise to succeed professionally. The psychological manipulation involved in Trevor's artistic theft was particularly cruel because he had positioned himself as Madison's biggest supporter and advocate, while simultaneously stealing the very work he claimed to admire. His encouragement of her artistic development had actually been intelligence gathering for his fraud operations. Madison's processing of this betrayal was complicated by her recognition that Trevor's presence in her life had systematically undermined her confidence and independence in ways she was only beginning to understand. He had convinced her that her artistic vision was too specialized for commercial success and that she needed his guidance to navigate the business aspects of creative careers. I realize now that Trevor was deliberately making me doubt my abilities and depend on his approval for validation. Madison reflected during one of our family therapy sessions. He would praise my talent while subtly suggesting that I wasn't strong enough or business savvy enough to succeed without his protection and guidance. The evidence of Trevor's systematic manipulation helped Madison understand that her struggles with self-confidence and creative direction had been artificially created by someone who benefited from her dependence and vulnerability. Her natural artistic instincts and professional capabilities had been intact all along, masked by psychological manipulation designed to maintain control. The recovery of her stolen artwork through the FBI investigation provided Madison with an unexpected opportunity to see her work through objective eyes as law enforcement agents and gallery professionals involved in the case praised the quality and originality of pieces she had begun to doubt under Trevor's influence. The FBI art crime specialist said my paintings showed remarkable technical skill and emotional depth. Madison reported her voice carrying surprise at receiving unbiased professional validation. She said Trevor was specifically targeting me because my work was good enough to fool gallery professionals and art collectors. The realization that Trevor had chosen her as a victim precisely because of her artistic talent rather than despite it provided Madison with a foundation for rebuilding her creative confidence and professional ambitions. His theft was actually evidence of her abilities rather than confirmation of her inadequacies. Madison's transformation accelerated as she began channeling her experience with manipulation and betrayal into powerful new artistic work that explored themes of psychological abuse, identity theft, and survival. The trauma that Trevor had inflicted became raw material for creative expression that resonated with gallery visitors and art critics. I'm creating a series called Stolen Identity that uses my experience with Trevor to explore how manipulative relationships can steal not just money and possessions, but also creativity and self-worth. Madison explained as she began planning her recovery and artistic renaissance. The gallery showing that would eventually emerge from Madison's healing process would establish her as an important voice in contemporary art, dealing with psychological trauma and recovery, transforming her victimization into a platform for helping other people recognize and escape similar manipulation. Her relationship with our family was also transforming as she learned to value independence and critical thinking over the false harmony that had made her vulnerable to Trevor's manipulation. The sister who had once defended her abuser was becoming an advocate for other victims and a source of strength for family members processing their own healing. I understand now that real love means protecting people from those who would harm them, even when that protection feels uncomfortable or creates conflict, Madison said during one of our reconciliation conversations. Ashley was trying to save me from someone dangerous, and I should have trusted her instincts instead of defending someone who was exploiting my emotions. The comprehensive prosecution of Trevor Richards and his criminal network represented one of the largest romance scam investigations in FBI history, ultimately revealing a sophisticated international fraud operation that had stolen over $2 million from American families while operating across 4 continents with coordinated criminal activities that required unprecedented law enforcement cooperation. Special Agent Martinez provided regular updates on the prosecution progress as federal prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions built cases that would ensure Trevor face maximum penalties for his crimes, while also dismantling the broader criminal enterprise that had enabled his systematic exploitation of vulnerable families. Trevor's arrest in Dubai triggered a coordinated international response that led to simultaneous arrests in Ohio, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and 3 European countries. Agent Martinez reported during one of our briefing sessions. The evidence you and Jake compiled was crucial for connecting these cases and demonstrating the scope of the criminal conspiracy. The federal charges against Trevor included wire fraud, identity theft, interstate criminal activity, money laundering, and violations of federal laws governing international financial crimes. The systematic nature of his activities and the multiple victim families involved qualified his prosecution under organized crime statutes that carried enhanced penalties and mandatory minimum sentences. Trevor's trial in federal court became a showcase for the sophisticated techniques used by modern romance scam artists and the devastating impact these crimes have on American families. My testimony via secure video conference from Chicago was considered crucial evidence because it demonstrated how Trevor's manipulation had escalated from relationship fraud into comprehensive family exploitation. Your decision to document Trevor's behavior and refuse to enable his manipulation provided the evidence needed to prove criminal intent and systematic planning, the federal prosecutor explained during my testimony preparation. Without your investigation, Trevor might have been able to claim that his actions were relationship disputes rather than criminal fraud. The evidence presented during trial included recordings of Trevor's phone conversations about target families and extraction techniques, financial documents showing systematic identity theft and credit fraud, and testimony from victims across multiple states who had experienced nearly identical manipulation and exploitation. Madison's testimony about the theft of her artistic identity and the systematic undermining of her confidence provided powerful evidence of Trevor's psychological manipulation techniques and their devastating impact on victims' personal and professional development. Her courage in testifying helped establish patterns of behavior that strengthened the prosecution's case. Madison's testimony demonstrated that Trevor's crimes extended beyond financial fraud into identity theft and psychological abuse that caused lasting damage to victims' careers and personal relationships, Agent Martinez observed. Her recovery and artistic success after escaping his manipulation provided hope for other victims. The international cooperation aspects of the prosecution enabled law enforcement agencies to trace financial transfers, communication networks, and coordination systems that revealed connections between Trevor's activities and criminal enterprises operating in Europe, Asia, and South America. His conviction would contribute to ongoing investigations targeting global romance scam operations. Trevor's sentencing hearing provided an opportunity for victim impact statements that helped the court understand the comprehensive damage caused by romance scam operations beyond simple financial theft. Families from across the country testified about the emotional trauma, relationship damage, and ongoing trust issues that resulted from professional-level manipulation. Romance scam victims often experience shame and self-blame that prevents them from reporting crimes or seeking support. The Victim Services Coordinator explained during the sentencing phase, "Your family's willingness to pursue prosecution and share your experience has encouraged other victims to come forward and seek justice." The final sentence imposed on Trevor included 12 years in federal prison restitution payments to all identified victims and lifetime registration as a financial crimes offender that would prevent him from accessing certain financial services and employment opportunities after his release. The severity of the sentence reflected the court's recognition of romance scam crimes as serious threats to family security and social trust. This sentence sends a clear message that romance scam crimes will be prosecuted to the full extent of federal law. The presiding judge stated during the sentencing hearing, "These criminals target the fundamental human needs for love and family connection, causing damage that extends far beyond financial loss." The asset forfeiture proceedings enabled the recovery of stolen money and property that was distributed among Trevor's victims, including families who had been unaware they were targets until the FBI investigation revealed the scope of his criminal activities. The financial recovery process provided some measure of justice for families whose savings and security had been compromised. Media coverage of Trevor's prosecution and the broader romance scam investigation attracted national attention to the growing threat these crimes represent for American families, leading to increased funding for law enforcement training and victim support services. Our family's experience became part of educational programs designed to help other families recognize manipulation techniques. Your family's courage in pursuing this investigation has contributed to protecting countless other families from similar victimization, Agent Martinez concluded as the legal proceedings reached their conclusion. The evidence you gathered and the prosecution you supported have made communities across America safer from these sophisticated criminal operations. The completion of Trevor's prosecution marked the end of a legal process that had begun with my decision to walk away from family manipulation and investigate suspicious behavior, demonstrating that individual courage and systematic evidence gathering can provide powerful tools for seeking justice and protecting communities from criminal exploitation. 6 months after Trevor's conviction and sentencing, our family had not only recovered from the financial and emotional damage he had inflicted, but had emerged stronger and more united than we had been before his manipulation drove temporary wedges between us. The healing process had revealed the fundamental strength of our relationships and created opportunities for growth that none of us could have anticipated during the darkest moments of betrayal and legal proceedings. My decision to channel the experience into positive action resulted in the creation of Family Shield, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating American families about romance scam techniques and providing resources for victims of relationship-based financial fraud. The organization combined my marketing expertise with insights gained from our painful experience to create educational programs that could help other families recognize manipulation before it caused devastating damage. Family Shield has already helped over 300 families identify potential romance scams and protect themselves from financial exploitation. I reported during our 6-month family celebration dinner at the same Oak Park restaurant, where Trevor had first begun gathering intelligence about our family dynamics and financial situation. The nonprofit's educational seminars attracted audiences from church groups, community organizations, and family service agencies across the Chicago metropolitan area, providing practical information about manipulation techniques while offering emotional support for families processing their own experiences with relationship-based fraud. My professional reputation at Henderson Communications had actually been enhanced rather than damaged by the experience, as my colleagues and clients recognized the courage and investigative skills I had demonstrated while protecting my family from criminal exploitation. The crisis management and systematic problem-solving abilities I had developed during the investigation translated into improved performance in client campaigns and strategic planning projects. The Trevor situation showed everyone at work that you have incredible strength and judgment under pressure, Jake observed as we reflected on the unexpected professional benefits that had emerged from our ordeal. Your promotion to regional marketing director was partly based on the leadership qualities you demonstrated during the family crisis. Madison's artistic career had experienced a remarkable renaissance as she channeled her healing process into powerful creative work that resonated with gallery audiences and art critics throughout the Chicago cultural community. Her Stolen Identity series had become one of the most talked-about exhibitions in the city's contemporary art scene, establishing her as an important voice addressing psychological trauma and recovery. The opening night of Madison's gallery show was incredible. Linda reported with obvious pride in her younger daughter's transformation from victim to advocate. People were moved to tears by the paintings that explored her experience with manipulation and her journey toward independence and self-worth. The financial recovery from Trevor's criminal activities had been more successful than anticipated, as the asset forfeiture proceedings and restitution requirements had enabled the return of most stolen money, while providing additional compensation for the emotional trauma and professional damage his manipulation had caused. Robert and Linda had used their portion of the recovered funds to establish college scholarships for students studying art therapy and victim advocacy, transforming their experience with manipulation into educational opportunities that would benefit future professionals working with trauma survivors and families affected by financial crimes. Creating scholarships in Madison's name felt like the right way to honor her survival and artistic growth. Robert explained during one of our family planning sessions, her experience with Trevor is helping train professionals who will protect other families from similar exploitation. The family therapy sessions that had begun during our healing process had evolved into ongoing monthly meetings that strengthened our communication skills and helped us maintain the healthier relationship dynamics we had developed after recognizing how manipulation had temporarily damaged our trust and understanding. Dr. Williams continued working with our family on a reduced schedule, helping us process ongoing challenges and celebrate milestones in our recovery, while providing tools for recognizing and resisting future manipulation attempts that might target any of our relationships or professional activities. Your family's commitment to healing and growth has been remarkable to witness. Dr. Williams observed during one of our progress evaluation sessions, The trauma you experienced has actually strengthened your relationships and created deeper understanding of healthy family dynamics. Jake's role throughout the crisis had demonstrated the qualities that made him the perfect partner for building a future together, and our relationship had deepened through shared challenges and mutual support during the most difficult period either of us had ever experienced. Going through this crisis together showed me that we can handle anything life throws at us, Jake said as we began discussing engagement plans and future goals. Your courage and integrity during the family emergency made me more committed than ever to building our life together. The community recognition for Family Shield's educational work had attracted attention from national victim advocacy organizations and federal agencies interested in expanding romance scam prevention programs to other regions where similar crimes were targeting vulnerable families. The Department of Justice has asked Family Shield to develop training materials for law enforcement agencies in other states, I announced during our celebration dinner. Our experience with Trevor is becoming part of a national effort to protect American families from romance scam operations. The transformation of our traumatic experience into meaningful work that protected other families provided a sense of purpose and accomplishment that helped heal the emotional wounds Trevor's manipulation had inflicted, while creating positive change that extended far beyond our personal recovery. Exactly 1 year after the airport confrontation that had shattered my understanding of family loyalty, while ultimately saving us all from financial and emotional devastation, Jake and I stood on the observation deck of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, watching the sun set over the Persian Gulf as we celebrated our engagement in the city, where Trevor's criminal enterprise had finally collapsed under the weight of his own arrogance and manipulation. The Burj Al Arab Hotel Management had insisted on hosting our engagement celebration free of charge as their way of honoring the courage and dignity I had demonstrated during the previous year's crisis and expressing their admiration for the positive outcome that had resulted from our family's nightmare experience. Ms. Johnson, your family's story has become legendary among our security and management staff, the hotel general manager explained during our welcome reception. Your decision to walk away from manipulation while maintaining grace under pressure demonstrated the kind of character we hope to see in all our distinguished guests. Madison had arrived 2 days earlier with her new boyfriend David, a fellow artist she had met at a gallery opening where her Stolen Identity series was being exhibited. David's respectful appreciation for Madison's independence and creative talent provided a striking contrast to Trevor's exploitative manipulation and systematic undermining of her confidence. David actually encourages my artistic development and never asks intrusive questions about family finances or tries to insert himself into private family discussions. Madison observed during one of our sisterly conversations, "Having a healthy relationship has helped me understand just how abnormal and dangerous Trevor's behavior really was." Robert and Linda had undergone their own transformation during the year of healing and growth that followed Trevor's conviction, learning to recognize manipulation techniques while developing stronger boundaries around family financial decisions and relationships with potential partners their daughters might bring into the family circle. We've learned that real family loyalty means protecting each other from people who would exploit our love and generosity, Linda reflected during our family dinner at the hotel's signature restaurant. Supporting someone blindly is not the same as loving them appropriately. The family financial security had been fully restored through the combination of recovered assets, insurance settlements, and improved money management practices that included professional oversight and protection against future fraud attempts. The credit monitoring and identity protection services we had implemented provided ongoing security for all family members. Jake's presentation of the engagement ring occurred as the Dubai skyline transformed into a glittering panorama of lights reflecting off the calm waters of the Arabian Gulf, creating the romantic moment we had both dreamed of during the difficult months of investigation, prosecution, and healing that had tested our relationship and strengthened our commitment to building a future together. Ashley, your courage during the family crisis showed me the kind of woman I want to spend my life with, Jake said, as he knelt on the observation deck surrounded by other tourists who had gathered to witness our engagement moment. You protected everyone you loved, even when it cost you everything you had worked to achieve. The engagement celebration extended through a week of activities that fulfilled my original vision for the perfect family vacation, including private desert safaris, yacht charters in Dubai Marina, and dining experiences at the world's most exclusive restaurants. The luxury vacation that Trevor's manipulation had nearly destroyed became the foundation for celebrating genuine family bonds and future happiness. Our family discussions during the week covered the profound life lessons we had learned through surviving Trevor's manipulation and working together to achieve justice and healing. The experience had taught us that true family loyalty requires protecting each other from harmful people and situations, even when that protection creates temporary conflict or disappointment. I learned that generosity should never come at the cost of self-respect or enabling destructive behavior. I shared during one of our evening conversations on the hotel's private beach. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is refuse to participate in their poor decisions, creating space for them to recognize dangerous situations. The recognition that standing up for principles and maintaining boundaries had ultimately saved our family from much greater damage provided validation for the difficult choice to walk away from the airport gate and investigate Trevor's background rather than enabling his manipulation through compliance and false harmony. Madison's artistic success and emotional healing demonstrated that surviving manipulation and betrayal could become sources of strength and creative inspiration rather than permanent damage to self-worth and professional capabilities. Her gallery exhibitions were attracting national attention and establishing her as an important voice in contemporary art, addressing psychological trauma and recovery. My experience with Trevor taught me that my instincts and judgment are actually quite good when I trust them, instead of doubting myself, because someone claims to know better. Madison reflected. Learning to value my own perspective has made me a stronger artist and a healthier person. Robert's transformation included his commitment to supporting both daughters equally without favoritism or manipulation. From outside influences, recognizing that his protective instincts toward Madison's happiness had been exploited by someone who understood family psychology and used that knowledge for criminal purposes. I learned that avoiding conflict is not the same as maintaining family harmony, Robert acknowledged during our final family dinner in Dubai. Sometimes creating temporary discomfort is necessary to prevent much greater damage to the people you love. The Family Shield nonprofit organization had grown beyond my original vision to become a nationally recognized resource for romance scam education and victim support, providing services that helped hundreds of families recognize manipulation, while offering practical assistance for those recovering from financial and emotional exploitation. The media attention attracted by Trevor's prosecution and our family's advocacy work had led to speaking opportunities, consulting contracts, and partnership agreements that established Family Shield as a sustainable organization, capable of expanding its protective services to communities across America. As our engagement celebration concluded with a sunset cruise through Dubai Marina, I realized that the $22,000 I had lost to Trevor's manipulation was actually a small price to pay for the life lessons, family healing, and meaningful work that had emerged from our traumatic experience. The luxury vacation that had begun as a gesture of gratitude toward family members who had supported my career development had evolved into a celebration of survival justice and genuine love that prioritized protection over enabling and truth over false harmony. True love requires courage to protect people from those who would harm them, even when that protection feels uncomfortable or creates temporary conflict. I concluded as Jake and I watched the Dubai skyline disappear into the distance. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is refusing to enable their mistakes, because real love means wanting what is genuinely best for people, rather than what feels easiest in the moment. The engagement ring sparkling on my finger represented not just commitment to building a future with Jake, but also recognition that we had both learned to value relationships based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care, rather than manipulation, dependency, or artificial harmony that prioritizes appearance over authentic connection. Our story had transformed from a tale of betrayal and financial exploitation into a celebration of courage, justice, and the power of families to heal and grow stronger when they choose truth and protection over enabling and false peace. The lessons we learned would guide our decisions for years to come, ensuring that we would never again be vulnerable to the kind of manipulation that had temporarily divided us, but ultimately made us stronger. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone tried to manipulate your family relationships or take advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it, and what did you learn about setting boundaries with people who don't have your best interests at heart? I hope sharing my story helps you recognize the warning signs of manipulation and gives you courage to protect your family from people who would exploit your love and trust. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about overcoming challenges and protecting the people you love, and share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding how modern romance scams target families. Thank you for listening to my story and supporting my mission to help families recognize and resist manipulation. Remember that standing up for what is right sometimes requires difficult choices, but protecting the people you love is always worth the temporary discomfort of setting boundaries and refusing to enable harmful behavior. Stay strong, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that questioning their behavior means you are not supportive or loving. Real family loyalty means protecting each other from those who would cause harm, even when that protection requires courage and creates conflict.